Every Monday and Friday for the month of September, we are going through the Alien franchise. We got to talk about Alien on Monday. Today, we're moving on to a sequel that some consider to be even greater than the first. Hi, my name's Zach, and today we are talking about Aliens. Before we get started, I started this YouTube channel because I cannot watch a movie without needing to talk about it afterwards. And if that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, I want this to be a conversation between me and you. So comment down below your thoughts and opinions on Aliens. When did you see it first? Is it one of your favorite movies? Did you like it more than the first one? Comment down below. I'd love to hear your story. And with that said, let's talk about what works about Aliens. And Aliens is widely regarded as one of the best sequels ever made. In fact, to a lot of people, it's the best Aliens movie that we've gotten in the franchise. And all of that credit should be attributed to James Cameron because he could have gone the easy route. He could have just rehashed Alien. He could have done another claustrophobic thriller, but James Cameron does not do that with Aliens. In fact, he switches up the genre of Aliens, making it a combat movie. And James Cameron, when he was writing Aliens, he was also working on writing Rambo Part 2.
Same time that he was writing Alien, he was also writing Rambo First Blood Part 2. So he had two different desks, and he played different music to get him into the headspace for the two different films.
So there was a lot of Vietnam influence to this film, as there are allegories to the Vietnam War in this film that James Cameron included as he was working on the script. But he still keeps the core elements that worked in Alien, where he does keep the suspense. He does have horror mixed into the formula, but it in no way feels like the same movie as Alien. And by doing so, James Cameron strikes the perfect balance of keeping this very familiar to what we loved about Alien, but still delivering a brand new experience in this franchise and in this world. The reason that Aliens, I think, works so well and works a lot better for Alien for some people is the heart that James Cameron infuses into this movie, mainly between Ripley and Newt. Now, Sigourney Weaver in Alien, as I mentioned in my review, was absolutely excellent in that film. She really made Ripley come alive in that film. In Aliens, though, that is when the humanity is infused into the Ripley character, where you've got a maternal side of Ripley coming out as she is taking care and protective over Newt, this orphan girl that they find when they go back to LV-426, where her colony has been completely wiped out by the aliens. Not only are you super sympathetic towards Newt as soon as they find her, but the relationship that develops between Sigourney Weaver and a young Carrie Henn here as Newt, which is actually not just her first on-screen performance, it's her first performance in general.
We found that the children who had a great deal of acting experience had mostly acted in commercials. And whenever they delivered a line, they'd smile at the end. And it was so inappropriate for this girl who's really suffering from traumatic stress. And Carrie had none of that conditioning.
Which is pretty crazy to think about because she is great as Newt in this film. And the way that Ripley is still able to be commanding, she's still able to kick butt, but still have that motherly, maternal instinct within the character, I think is what takes the Ripley character to the next level in this film, and is also why I think this is Sigourney Weaver's best performance in the entire franchise up until this point. She actually got nominated for Best Actress at the Academy Awards for this movie, which is pretty crazy to think about today, but was absolutely unheard of back when Aliens came out. Another thing about Aliens that I think works a little bit better than Alien is the supporting cast around Sigourney Weaver. Now, I absolutely love the cast of Alien. I think everyone's perfectly cast and their characters are great, but there's just a little bit more personality in Hicks and Hudson and Vasquez and Bishop. Each and every character is so distinct in their portrayals that I just find this group more fun than the ensemble in Alien, which granted is also due to the nature of the film that they're in, because the cast in Alien had to be in a suspense thriller, whereas these guys get to be in this combat action film where they get to play corporal marines, so they get to have the tough guy language and also bring in a little bit more levity to the film than the cast in Alien got to do. Which I do think is also benefited by James Cameron's sensibility when it comes to banter and writing. And of course, we got to talk about what James Cameron does with the aliens in this, because not only are there a lot more aliens in this film, and while James Cameron made this an action flick, a combat film within the world of Alien, he also does so much to build upon the foundation of the Alien lore that is so iconic and recognizable in the franchise. It's kind of baffling when you think about how this wasn't in the first Alien, and this is all that James Cameron brought to the table. Whether it is that this is the film that establishes that these aliens are called xenomorphs, or that they work like an ant colony where they have a queen that lays all of the eggs, and that the other aliens kind of work as the drones to the queen. This is all things that are so well established and really expanded the mythology of the xenomorph and made it even more threatening and scary and memorable in cinematic history, but without making it feel like it was completely detached from what Ridley Scott and his crew and team made in Alien. He also reintroduced the idea that when the aliens take their victims, they cocoon them for later, which was something that was introduced in Alien in a deleted scene that was later reincorporated into the director's cut, but James Cameron officially brought it into the mythology and the lore in this movie. So obviously, I love this film, but let's talk about what doesn't work about Aliens. And much like Alien, which is also incredible in and of itself, that I don't have much negatives, really any negatives to say about Alien. Coming into the sequel, new director, new direction, I also don't really have much to say that badly about Aliens. I think the biggest criticism that I have of Aliens that really just kind of bumped me, I didn't really like it, was at the beginning of the film when they find Sigourney Weaver, when they find Ripley in the ship, they bring her back. There's a scene where Burke comes in, introduces himself. She asks how long she's been in cryosleep for. He says it's been 57 years. And then it appears that a chest burster is bursting out of Ripley. And then we cut to Ripley waking up from a dream. And the entire thing was a dream sequence. I'm not a big fan of relaying that information in a dream sequence, because it easily could have just been a scene that actually happened, and maybe it's a dream sequence where she's remembering what actually happened, but the way it comes across at the beginning of the film, to me, I didn't really like the execution. And this isn't necessarily something that doesn't work in the film, but there is two different cuts, or at least there's a number of cuts of Aliens, but one specifically is the director's cut, which shows a scene that while Ripley was in cryosleep and away from Earth for so long, she actually had a daughter that aged and died while she was in cryosleep for those 57 years. And this was actually a big selling point for Sigourney Weaver when she was pitched the idea of Aliens and coming back as Ripley.
He really captured her and made her this renegade and someone who wasn't, 200 years later, her daughter had died. It was a great beginning for the character to feel that kind of isolation and rage, I think.
And it is completely cut out from the theatrical cut. Now, it doesn't really hurt the theatrical cut without this scene in it, but in this director's cut, with this scene reincorporated into the film, it does give a stronger motivation for Ripley and even a more clear understanding as to why she connects to Newt so much. And it does, I believe, strengthen the relationship between the two. So it kind of sucks that this scene was cut from the final film. But other than that, I really don't have anything else negative to really say about Aliens. If you really look at this film, James Cameron kind of did the impossible with it, where Alien was already this well-regarded, well-beloved, pretty much masterpiece from Ridley Scott. Even at the time that it came out, a lot of people saw it that way. And James Cameron, only coming in as his second film, he totally changed the direction. He totally changed the tone of the entire movie but he knew what to keep. He knew what needed to be consistent within the franchise. He nailed that balance, and he made one of the best sequels of all time. So for that reason, I am totally on the boat of everyone who loves Aliens, and I'm going to give Aliens a strong recommend. I think that this movie in and of itself is kind of a miracle work, especially when you go to behind the scenes issues that it had, where James Cameron was not getting along with the crew in England when they shot this in Pinewood Studios, and the crew in England made shooting this movie very difficult for James Cameron.
They would stop everything and have tea, and I know Jim had some concerns about that on the main unit set.
They were big Ridley fans, and I think it was very tough for Jim, because I don't think they'd seen Terminator, and he kept trying to have showings, and none of them would go. And so I think that it took them a while to realize how brilliant he was.
This could have came out as a mess, and instead we've got one of the most iconic and classic movies of all time. Keep your eye out for next Monday. We're going to be talking about Alien 3. That's going to be quite a fun discussion to have. If you like this kind of content, you can check out the rest of the Alien reviews in that playlist right up there. Right down there is my ranking for all of James Cameron's films up until this point. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and don't just watch movies, talk movies. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.